Hi guys, welcome back to another episode of the Scottish Scrapper. Today I'm going to give you a little bit of a walkthrough on the metals. So what metals do I scrap, what do I get them from, and which ones are the ones that are actually worth recovering and taking to the scrapyard. Or, if you're able to actually do the precious metal recovery, which ones are best to keep or best trying to sell online. So let's start. So the first metal we're going to cover is steel. Obviously steel is an abundant metal, you get it absolutely everywhere. A very heavy metal, but unfortunately a metal that's not actually worth a lot of money. So you need an awful lot of it if you're taking it to the scrapyard to actually get any money back. On frequent times I have filled the car and came away with the scrapyard with like £35. So it's really up to yourself if you're out scrapping and collecting metals. If you want to collect steel, it is really a byproduct of some of the other kind of scrap items that we collect. But if you have space to store it and you have a means to getting it to the scrapyard, then it's still £35 better in my pocket than sending it to the tip. So lots of steel items. You can imagine they come off absolutely everything, from Hoover poles to pieces of computers, uh, disk drives, all different kinds of things. Lots of things are made of steel, and I would say it's a very abundant metal. So not really worth collecting if you don't have the space, but if you have the space, collect it, sell it, make some money. The next one is aluminium. So aluminium is obviously a very light metal, and again you need an awful lot of it to make any money, because the volume you require to have a heavy load is fairly significant. So where do you get aluminium from? Well, as you can see, the top piece of aluminium I have here is actually from a saw, one of these hinge saws, and that's the bottom plate. Extracted all the other metals from it, so it's just the bare aluminium. There's the other piece. So really good piece of machined aluminium, and obviously taking all the other metals off of it. You need to take all the metals off, you need to separate the metals. So if there is steel screws or whatever they may be attached to it, you need to remove them in order to sell it on to the scrapyard. And there's just another piece of that as well. Other pieces of aluminium you'll come across is what you call aluminium extrusion. So this is the kind of things you see that are framing windows. That's commonly where you get aluminium extrusion. Got a little bit in there, got a lot more of it sitting up here. Something you have to tidy up a little bit, because usually it's encased with some sort of seal that's been applied to the window. But again, it's something you can come across quite a lot, especially in kind of house renovations. People are changing their windows, doors, things like bathroom showers. The doors and seals around them are usually made of aluminium. Other just pieces of aluminium rod that's in there. Looks heavy, but is really light. This piece of aluminium is actually an encasement for sockets. So there was a socket extension in this. You commonly find these in offices. There's about 9 or 10 sockets that sit inside this piece of machined aluminium as well. So a nice big piece of aluminium. It's actually quite a heavy piece, which is unusual for aluminium, but again, worth keeping, worth adding to the pile. And obviously worth cashing in. Got a couple of them actually as well, so there's another one down in there. Other things you find a lot with aluminium is motors or machinery encasement. So this is the top of a grinder, an electric grinder, cutting tool, and obviously the top of that is made of machined aluminium. So again, removed all the other metals that are attached to it, a lot of steel attached to this. Took a bit of time to do, but yeah, it's a nice little kind of hobby and something to pass the time in terms of making that nice and clean piece of aluminium. Some motors are made of aluminium. So here's a piece of a motor. This one came off a strimmer, one of the electrical strimmers. Again, a nice kind of piece of aluminium here. Commonly these are steel as well, so it's quite unusual to get one that's aluminium. But you can find them. So, you know, if people are throwing out strimmers, lawnmowers, whatever, some of the motors actually maybe, you know, have a big piece of aluminium included in them. Most of the aluminium that I get is pieces like this, and these are kind of pieces that are attached to motherboards and things like that. They go against the CPUs and help cool it, so they're really a kind of cooling mechanism. So you get all different shapes and sizes of these things. I'll show you a couple for an example. But yeah, they're very common and something that you find very often if you're scrapping computers. To try and see another one, a small one down here. Again, same idea. Sits against a component. I think this one actually sits against a transistor. And again, just helps cool. Very small one. Again, just for a little chip. That will sit against the chip and cool the chip. So, lots of examples of those kind of things. There's another one. Again, as you can see, they do come in all shapes and sizes. I'll actually show you one I've kept because I just kind of like the design of it. So, that's another example. It's just aluminium, but quite artistic, I thought, so I actually kept that one. Stuck it on the side of the shed. That's pretty cool. And going back to the aluminium box, some of the other items you have in here is, in some of my other videos, you will see that a lot of motors that you pull out of things like lawnmowers or hoovers, you know, they all have copper motors. Sometimes that can be deceiving. This looks like a nice big piece of copper, and in reality it's a piece of aluminium. So aluminium is a good conductor of electricity. Unfortunately, this one is only copper coated and it is actually aluminium, so you can include that within your aluminium pile. I do have a couple of these. There's one there, another one here. You can clearly see that's not copper coloured, that's aluminium. So unfortunate, but you know, it's always a bit disappointing when you pull these out and it's not copper, because obviously copper is the one that actually you go for when you're looking for motors. It's a copper piece that you're wanting to salvage. But again, aluminium is a salvageable metal and worthwhile. One thing I would say I'd never kind of recommend collecting is these things. So these are all, you find these on lots and lots of motherboards. And it is aluminium. It looks a bit like a battery, but it's obviously not a battery. But acts in a kind of very similar way. I've got a few of them sitting in there, different shapes and sizes as well in the jar, and really just to, you know, just to show you there is kind of different shapes and sizes to them, and they are all aluminium on the outside. If you break these open, inside them there is a piece of aluminium foil. So if you get really big ones, you know, there's a couple of big ones in there, it may be worth stripping it back and keeping the aluminium, but you know, to do that with all these little ones would just take absolutely forever. And as I say, you need an awful lot of aluminium to make any real money from it. So to think how many actually of these you would have to make and absolutely strip back to make any money would be, you know, an absolute load of them. You can sell products as dirty aluminium, but yeah, you'll be pretty hard pushed to find a scrapyard that would take them. Certainly not kind of any electronical waste scrapyards or computer based scrapyards that are around in my area, so not something that really I can look at and save and make any money from. So we touched on copper. Example of kind of different coppers. I mean, these are all the same, they're still copper metal, as you can see, though they are slightly different in colour, some of them. Some of them are more reddish, other ones are that kind of golden copper colour. And the key thing with copper is you can sell it as heavy copper, or you get different gradings in copper wire. So when you strip back cables, electrical cables, such as these, if you strip the wire out of that cable, that essentially will be bright cable wire, and bright cable wire is what sells for the most. So something like that, really bright wire, uncontaminated, and sells for the most. I think something like £6.50 a kilo, somewhere around there for bright wire. So if you can accumulate a lot of it, and you have got the means to strip it, then there is significant money to be made from it. Copper is like I say, the metal that really make most money for the scrappers. Other things you get copper out of, old TVs, the old yokes that go around the back of the TV glass and the inside are copper. You get copper from various different items, like things that on your hard drive. On your hard drive, in between it, there's a disc, and there's a little disc reader. Disc reader looks like this. That's a piece of aluminium as well. And on this part here, there's usually a little semi-triangle of copper. Don't think I've got any of them sitting around at the moment to show, but yeah, again, a little bit of copper there that can be pulled from there. Obviously, the most you'll find copper from are from motors. So if you get motors, you usually get a square motor that has a copper outside, and inside you'll get a piece like this that obviously has copper wire in it as well. And if you can extract that wire, then obviously there's a little bit of copper to be had there. You can see there the bright kind of copper colour on this side. A big piece of steel going right through the middle of it, but this piece here is also copper. Surrounded is a little bit of ferrite. Ferrite obviously is a magnetic, shatterable metal that is not worth really any money whatsoever, so not worth keeping. Ferrite, but certainly worth pulling these little bit of coppers off there, pulling that copper wire out there, and adding it to your copper pile. And then the whole piece here, you just stick in your steel pile once you've extracted the steel out of it. Now, if you don't do that, what you'll get for this is you'll get something like 12 pence a kilo for electrical motors if you're not extracting the copper. So it is worth doing, it is worth extracting the copper if you have the means and the time to do so. So most of these come from motors, as I say. Some of them actually come from transformers. So I actually have a little transformer here. You can see that's a transformer. Get a lot of these in things like, actually if you see a lot of plugs that look like it's a big power pack, most likely within the power pack of that plug is a transformer, one of these. And as you can see, if we look kind of closely there, you can see the copper wire inside of it. So this one particular one is welded on that side and on the other side, and if you stick a chisel in that and give it a good smack, then you will be able to break that open and you'll be able to recover the copper that's inside there. And it's actually quite a nice big bit of copper that's in there. So the more transformers you can get, the better. An absolutely fantastic source of copper, and it is all nice clean copper as well, quite thick, quite bright. I'm not sure if we've got any transformer copper in here to show you. Let's have a look. I do. There's a piece right here. So not the cleanest of pieces, this one, but you can see that's a piece that came out of a transformer. So again, it won't be classed as bright. It does have a coating, so it will just be classed as heavy copper when you take that to the scrapyard. But it is heavy. It's exactly what it is. Copper is a heavy metal, so you don't need too much of it to actually, you know, get a bit of money back. So it's great. Transformers though come in all shapes and sizes, so very small one, still a transformer that does exactly the same purpose as the big one, but these ones you're more likely to find on computer motherboards rather than in plugs. So smaller ones on motherboards, you get a lot of little bits of copper on computer PCBs, motherboards, and obviously the bigger ones you get out of things like microwaves and power sockets from plugs. Okay, so that's copper. Obviously copper isn't just comes out in a wire form. There's obviously other forms of copper as well. So let's show you the kind of other copper that you can collect if you come across it, if you're scrapping, but it's a little bit more rare to come across, especially for a scrapper. So the copper that everyone's familiar with, copper piping used in plumbing. So yeah, if you can you know, see anyone that's changing their bathroom out, putting a new heating system in, throwing an old boiler out, you know, you do come across copper, and as you can see, all this kind of copper that I've got here, which is maybe around, I don't know, 12 kilos or something in copper. That was just all kind of found in one go with one bathroom that had been ripped out and discarded at the side of the road. So, you know, going past, I thought, yeah, there's the copper. I'll take some of that. So, yeah, it's a great source of copper. Again, classed as heavy copper. Obviously not bright wire copper, so you don't get as much money, but it's still good quality copper, and again heavy. So as much of that as you can accumulate as possible, then you know, you'll be very well off, because as I say, copper is a great metal to take to scrap yards, and you know, varies between £5 to £6.5, so a kilo. So well worth keeping and hoarding, and then cashing in when you've got a decent amount. Next metal I want to quickly cover off was stainless steel. So obviously steel, still steel, but stainless steel is it's not magnetic, so it is actually worth more money than steel. It's actually more around the price of aluminium, probably around £1.20 a kilo, and obviously stainless steel is fairly heavy, you know, so you don't need to accumulate too much of this to actually make some money. You see, I've got a little ferrite magnet here, and you can see it doesn't stick. That's stainless steel. That's normal steel. Yeah, stainless steel doesn't stick. So stainless steel is always worth keeping, and you can always tell what stainless steel and what is aluminium just through the weight, really. There's a lot of things you get that are stainless steel. You see them in everyday objects. You see them in a lot of kind of things that you know, have in the kitchen, for instance. All these things I actually took out of phones, so they were within the handsets of office phones, metal office phones. So I actually quite a lot of stainless steel out of them, which was really good. Some stainless steel pipe, which I thought might have just been kind of nickel plated copper, but it isn't. It's stainless steel, and the way you tell that is you stick a grinder against it, and if it sparks, then it isn't copper, it's steel. So it sparked, it's steel. Piece of a coffee maker. Yep. Nice little piece, nice heavy piece. Looks kind of like a chrome finish. But yeah, nice piece of stainless steel as well. So again, as I say, £1.20 a kilo. I've not got a lot of it sitting here, but again, I'll let it accumulate. And you know, once I've got a full bucket full there, I'll take that to the scrapyard and I'll cash that in. Moving on to another abundant metal. This one, I can get it open, is brass. So lots and lots of brass. Yeah. Where do you get brass? Well, you get brass in bathroom fittings. There's a tap. Yeah, that's solid brass. You get them in radiator piping. So parts of the radiator are brass. Obviously the fitting that fits it to the copper pipe. And we can see the same here. That's brass. Yep. So brass is a great metal. You do commonly find it on door handles. The reason lots of door handles are actually made of brass because brass is actually much more resistant to bacteria, and that's why you find that a lot of door handles are made of brass. So there you go, not just an education in metal, but a little bit of education in hand cleanliness as well. That big bathroom piece that I got all the copper from, also got a huge tap here, which is actually solid brass all the way through as well. That weighs a significant weight itself. Solid brass, as I say, really heavy piece, and a great find, but it doesn't fit in my little bucket unfortunately, so that's just sitting on the outside at the moment. But yeah, brass, as I say, you'll get a lot of that mostly from like some bathrooms and door handles, but where I actually accumulate most of my brass is from plugs. So if I look a little bit deeper in here, you'll see the plug ends. So all your ends on plugs are made of brass. Yes, you can get them made of aluminium, but majority of them are brass. You know, so we're all used to these three-pronged plugs, and as I say, they're all brass, so fantastic. You keep enough plugs, you pull the plugs apart, you get the brass prongs on the outside, and you get the brass insides as well. So that's one from a plug extension, but essentially these are the kind of pieces you get on the inside as well. They're all plugs. So yeah, lots of brass. Brass can be worth around £3.50 to £4 or £5 a kilo as well. So well worth keeping, well worth accumulating. Don't understand people that fit bathrooms and throw away brass taps and you know, things like that, brass drain pieces. It just, yeah, beggars belief to me, to be honest. It's throwing away money essentially. So yeah, good for me, because yeah, if I see them I'll pick them up and I'll keep the brass. So that's brass. So that's a bit of a rundown of the kind of standard metals, the metals you come across much more often than obviously precious metals, and ones that are obviously in much more abundance to collect if indeed you are out there collecting scrap metal, or again, whatever you're scrapping for. You know, these are kind of byproducts of scrapping, so you will come across a lot of these metals. So as I say, if you're looking for the likes of brass, I would always say that the best thing is, if you can get your hands on, you know, scraps, the bathrooms, kitchens, things like that, and you know, get the taps and plug holes and all these kind of stuff, or doorknobs. They are the big pieces of heavy brass, and you don't need a lot of them, accumulate a lot of them to actually make a little bit of money from them. For copper, Obviously motors are the best thing. If you can get a lot of motors out, as I say, lawnmowers, hoovers, that kind of thing, or if you can get a lot of copper from pipes for any kind of plumbing jobs that are being done. Again, if there's bathroom refits and they're throwing away the copper pipes or the cut-offs, then they're always fantastic. For me, it's mostly around the components within computers and on motherboards that have little pieces of copper, and salvaging them from the boards, and then obviously taking copper from the copper wiring that's on the power cord. So that's where I get most of my copper. And as I say, the power cord obviously carries a plug on it as well that has little brass ends that again adds to your brass pile. So that's always good. Stainless steel's everywhere. As I say, you'll be able to tell stainless steel just about the weight. Even the sound of it, the sound's completely different from the sound that if you strike stainless steel against something, if you strike aluminium against something. Aluminium's got more of a thud, than stainless steel. It's more of a ping, so it's quite easy to tell. As I say, you don't need a lot of stainless steel to make a good bit of money as well, being almost the same price as aluminium, and much obviously more expensive for the scrapyard than normal steel. So it's a good thing to find, a good thing to keep, but obviously just make sure you stick a magnet against it and make sure it is actually stainless. Let's say aluminium's everywhere. You find a lot of aluminium. What I would say is aluminium cans are a complete and utter waste of time. Unless probably you're cutting off the top disc of the aluminium can. A lot of your tin openers you can just take off the top disc and save them. Because if you take a whole heap of aluminium cans to the scrapyards, lots of scrapyards don't actually take them, and that's because of the amount of paint that is used on aluminium cans. The paint's almost as heavy as the can is, so they find it very hard to sell those cans on, and that's ultimately what the scrapyard is trying to do. They're trying to sell on their metal. So yeah, I would recommend that you don't even waste your time trying to collect aluminium cans. Stick them in your recycling, and obviously, whatever company that goes to, they'll be dealing with that on a massive scale, and I'm sure they'll be able to make some money of it, and everything gets recycled responsibly. I personally don't get involved in aluminium cans at all. It's a waste of time. So not for me. Obviously the steel, as I say, it's a byproduct for me. I do hoard it, I do keep it, I do wait till there's a lot of it, and when there's an awful lot of it, that's probably when I'll take my other metals to the scrapyard along with it. So I'm not just going along the scrapyard and getting £35 for some steel. I'm actually going along and getting some money for some brass, some aluminium, some steel, some copper, whatever it may be. So make it worth your while when you do it. I talked about the cords a little bit in terms of scrapping the copper out of the cords. You don't actually have to do that. You can actually sell it to the scrapyard still as the cord, so you don't have to take the copper out of it. They will buy it as insulated copper. And there is different grades of that. I'm not sure my scrapyard really grades it too much, or if they just stick it all in a massive barrel and give you one price for it all. But there is certainly different grades, different categories of your insulated wire, so something to be aware of if you don't have the time stripping it. It's not something you want to put your time into. If you have a couple of bin bags full of insulated copper wire, you still make 20 or 30 quid from that as well, so it's worthwhile doing, worthwhile keeping. So that's, as I say, the kind of non-precious metals. So let's cover off a couple of precious metals. So what we see here is capacitors, and there's capacitors of all different colours, shapes, sizes, and interestingly enough there is a variety of different metals in these things as well. So a lot of them have aluminium casings to them, but actually inside them you can recover silver. So it's obviously not something you can open up and extract the silver from. You need to have a silver extraction process, you know, and that usually means the use of acids to dissolve the metal, and then you need to use an agent to precipitate the silver and extract it that way. So not something I can do, so what I usually do is I'll just hoard as many of these as I possibly can, and then probably sell them as a job lot on eBay, because there is companies out there that can do that and do that. So it is something, you know, again, comes off the motherboard. It comes off a lot of electrical boards excuse me, and it's worth keeping. One other thing about these as well is I find it difficult to tell. I'm sure if you look online and put in the metal that I'm about to mention, you'll see which ones they are. I think it probably one like that is a bit more likely, but it's a metal called tantalum. So tantalum is quite a rare metal and worth quite a bit of money, and something that, again, if you can have a means of extracting, or you know which ones are tantalum, you can extract them out and sell them separately, because obviously tantalum capacitors are worth far more than the standard kind of capacitor. So like I say, a lot of these are done for silver recovery, but if you can pick the ones out that have tantalum and sell them for tantalum recovery, again, they're worth quite a bit of money. So tantalum, you do find that in a couple of components on a PCB board. There's a kind of tiny little square, a yellow square, sometimes black square with numbers on it, or a little plus sign on it if it's black, and those usually contain a piece of tantalum as well. So that's tantalum. As I say, silver recovery here, you can do, but you need a lot of them. For me, the way I prefer to recover silver is through switches. So there's a switch, yeah. So you get all these, you get switches like this in almost all kind of electrical devices, and the outcome is really the same. It's the piece inside that obviously makes the contact, the metal contact, that's coated in silver, and that's what you're trying to recover. So you can see this is just a nice normal little switch. I think this one came out of the handle of a lawnmower. So you get them in absolutely everything. Honestly, you'll find these things all over the place. So you get that type of switch, like I say, you'll find inside things like handles of hoovers or lawnmowers, and you get the good old button switch, the off and on button, yeah. And again, electrical switches equals silver, yeah. And I will show you when I open one of these up exactly what I mean. So here's a switch opened up, and shows you obviously the mechanism inside. So you can see where the metal touches metal, yeah, on the end here. This is where the metal contact is. These pieces are brass, so that's brass, that's brass. This won't be brass inside, but these little metal contacts that are touching together will be silver, yeah. So let's take one out, and there you can see on the end that little nub is made of silver, yeah, pure silver. Now silver, you would actually be quite surprised, but silver isn't worth that much money. You need an awful lot of it again to make money. I mean, you're talking, you need ounces and ounces of silver, and you know, trying to extract it can be difficult. But as I say, metal contacts, that's where you're going to get most of your silver. Can be difficult to get that little bit of silver off there. Commonly you just snip that bit, take the whole bit, snip off the end bit, snip off this side, and save that in a little jar till you've got lots of pieces of silver in there, and then you can look at best ways to recover the silver or extract the silver from the other metals. So yeah, electrical switches equals silver. Next thing we'll cover off is gold. So where do you get gold? Well, gold is on lots of motherboards. Yeah, so computer motherboards, and normally you see here these little fingers that are actually silver. Commonly they are gold. They're gold plate. And again, you know, you can't just extract that or pull it off and you've got a piece of gold. You have to be able to extract the gold from the plate and from the other metals that it's attached to. So you need a means and method to do that. And as I say, normally it's through using things like nitric acid and and then precipitating the gold out of that mixture. So not something again I can do, but again, you know, you can sell these components, these pieces online, again, if you've got enough of them. So these chips, they're called IC chips, and they do contain gold wire. So a lot of people sell IC chips, different types of IC chips. You see, you got the kind of two-sided ones, and then you've got your four-sided ones. I'm not 100% sure, if I'm honest to you, what ones contain more gold than others, but they do contain gold. And as I say, you know, you can save all these up. You get lots of IC chips on each motherboard. As you can see, there's, you know, a lot on this one board itself. Save them all up, sell them as a job lot. So you sell them as a weight, you know, IC chips, so much weight, you sell them online, and there will be a company somewhere that processes them and processes the gold. You can see on the end of this little motherboard as well, I'm talking about little copper components. See, there's a little bit of copper wire there. You get them very small ones, you do get very big ones as well on different types of motherboards. So that's where, as I said before, I get a lot of my copper. But as we're talking about gold, let's cover off here. So you can see the pins that are here are all gold plate pins. Sometimes you get pins that actually just extrude straight from the board, and they can be gold plated. If you look at things like Sky motherboards, Sky digital boxes, their motherboards have lots of gold pins. Again, it's not gold metal, so the metal underneath is probably steel or something else, but it is plated with gold. So again, if you have lots of them, you can save them up and sell them online, or if you have a license to use dangerous acids, which I don't, again, then you can sell them online. These things here as well are called transistors. Showed you a bit earlier on about the aluminium cooler that can sit against some of these. This metal here actually is nickel plated copper, so it's an actual really good quality piece of copper inside these things as well. Other things that contain gold are usually your plugs. So as you can see, these gold pins from this plug. You find a lot of these kind of plugs, you know, that are connectors for electronics. Ones you'll see very often is ones that are attached to like your Ethernet cables, which is these ones. So you can see they are gold plated on the top. That's an Ethernet cable thing. You can probably see if you look closely that the sides aren't gold. It is only the connection at the top that's gold. So normally I don't try and extract these. They're a pain in the butt to extract, and there's only a little tiny bit of gold plate on top of them, so not really worth my while to do that. But that's where you get your gold. You get it from your IC chips, you get it from your connectors, you get it from your pins. And as I say, you know, there's plenty things on motherboards that will produce a little bit of gold, so save all the stuff up and sell them all as a job lot. Next we will cover off palladium. So finally guys, we're going to cover off palladium and show you where you can get palladium from electronics, computers. So you'll see this board here, actually a very nice board with lots of gold plate on it, as you can see. That'll certainly be a desirable board to sell. But what we're looking for is not gold on this one, it's palladium. So we find palladium in monolithic capacitors. So you see the silver thing there at the top, and the 3 little rectangles below it, they are called monolithic capacitors. If we can get in focus. Oh, struggling. Now, monolithic capacitors contain 2 metals. They contain silver and they contain palladium. I think it's something like 2% palladium, 10% silver, depending on the quality, depending how old they are. Obviously, more modern electronics, they try and reduce the precious metals as much as they can. The little black one to the left and to underneath, they are little resistors. They actually contain quite a bit of silver as well, but you need an absolute mountain of them because they're very thin. So you need at least about a pound in weight of those little black ones to recover about a gram, probably half a gram of silver. But the monolithic capacitors, they are on absolutely every single electronic board all over the place. You don't get them on power boards, but you do get them on PCBs, you do get them on these kind of boards here. And this again is a board that I have taken from a Mattel office phone. One of the kind of larger phones. You can see it's got nice gold pins. Yep. There's ones in the middle that don't have gold pins, so it's not all gravy. A little square piece there. That is another type of transformer, so it's got a little piece of copper in there that you can extract. The silver thing in the middle is called a crystal oscillator. That does have silver in there as well, but again quite difficult to open and extract. You need to do a lot of them again, but there is metal. And you can see the little copper component there in the middle. So these boards are really good. Again, a few aluminium capacitors on there, but again, not something that you really want to try and hoard. So, as I say, for palladium, for silver, but obviously palladium's the one you really want, monolithic capacitors, okay, those little rectangles. The key thing is, when you're looking at these, again, you can tell with experience, but you'll see a lot of boards, they do have numbers applied to them. They don't actually on this board, funnily enough, but on most boards there's a number and it starts with a letter. If it starts with an R, then it's a resistor. If it starts with a C, then it's a monolithic capacitor. So if it starts with a C, take it. If it starts with an R, if it starts with an L, leave it where it is. Yeah. But if you want to take these little black resistors with the little numbers on them as well, then keep them separately. As I say, you can actually have some silver recovery from them. And that's where you get palladium from boards. But where else do you get palladium? You get palladium as well from these. Yep, that's a bit of the dirty one. Yep, and you see me filming as well. Mirror finish. A lot of people actually keep these and use them as little artistic things, artistic pieces. There's a bigger one. So where do we get these? They're not CDs. They are hard drive plats. So that is what sits in a hard drive on your computer, or in a hard drive within your Sky Digital box, and that's what saves all your data. All your data is contained on this disk. Now this disk is mostly aluminium. It's a very kind of glass-like substance as well. If I hit that off something hard, it will shatter, it will smash into many different pieces. But the key thing about this is it has a layer of palladium. So there is palladium within hard drive plats. The one problem with that is that the palladium is extremely, and I mean extremely thin. It's like 0.01 micron or something. It is really, really thin plate of palladium that's on there. But as I've said, you know, all these kind of things about volume. You know, if you have lots and lots of these things, then you know you can sell them. People will buy them online. I've got a little stock of them. I just keep building them up. I've not actually sold any of them yet. I've not even tried to sell them, but at one point I will. when I've got more than I'm comfortable with, and more that I want to sit around. But at the moment, they're just building up, so you know, I'll wait till I've got lots and lots of them. So, I mean, there's no way, obviously, data can be recovered from these things either now. So, they're all scratched up, they're all handled, they're all. I try and erase almost everything if I can still get power to it before I actually take the things apart, to make sure that there's obviously no chance of any kind of data, people's pictures or anything like that. Whatever you're recovering, that's people's personal stuff, and you want to make sure that that's safe. And that is obviously the forefront of my mind when I'm scrapping anything, that you're dealing with people's items, and most of them that have been donated to me. So I want to make sure that anything that is in my care is dealt with in the best possible way, and we make sure that everything that's possible to be recycled is recycled. All the components that can be extracted are extracted, and we do what we can with them. And if not, then if there's plastic waste, which you do get a lot, especially with things like TVs and things like that, there's a lot of plastic waste. We make sure we take them to the recycling centre, and we make sure everything's kind of responsibly recycled. Some plastic, like ABS plastic's all recyclable, so you can put that straight in your recycling bin. So again, if I have things like that, I'll break the plastic down, I'll put it in my recycling bin, and I'll make sure that gets taken away by the recycled waste and is obviously responsibly dealt with as well. So that's it, guys. That's a bit of a run through precious metals and non-precious metals. I hope you found some of that useful, and obviously somewhere to now you can see, when you look at different metals, you maybe think a little bit differently in terms of throwing them away or putting them in the recycle bin. Actually, there's things that are actually worth a bit of money, especially to people like me that go around and collect these things. Again, more of a hobby than anything else. I've never actually been in it to make any money. It's nowhere near a business. Could never make money to be a business. I'm actually quite successful in my business, so I do well anyway. And this is more something so I can de-stress, get out the house, spend a little bit of time taking things apart. I think all of us when we were young like to take things apart and have a look at the inner workings of things, and my curiosity is just continued on from there. So I like to learn a lot about electronics, how it works, what the components are, and obviously do what I can to recycle them and make sure they're either reused or turned into more precious material. So you never know, one day you buy a piece of jewellery, it may be from something that I've recycled. It could have came from your own TV, which is quite an interesting thought. So thanks for watching. Appreciate all the views as always. Apologies for the unprofessional camera work. I do this on my phone at the moment until I get myself a GoPro or something more appropriate to record with. But I do appreciate all the views. If you like to see more videos as I do them, as I load them, I say all things I will be scrapping, I will be posting a video of me doing that. So if you're interested in that, subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, and I look forward to seeing you on the next scrap. Thanks, bye now.